Hey guys, what is up? Ultimus here again today, bringing you another video looking at warriors and specifically our talent trees. I'm going to be going over right now, at least looking at arms. I'll probably do one video dedicated to each of the talent trees, my thoughts on it, what I think will be the optimal talents. Let's go ahead and jump right in. First, looking at arms. So our level 15 tree we have, or level 15 tier, we have Juggernaut, Double Time, and Warbringer. Just about the entire duration of Mist of Pandaria and the good portion of my time spent on the Warlords of Draenor beta, I ran with Juggernaut. I like being able to charge every 12 seconds instead of 12. I like the pace it sets my gameplay on. I like being able to be that mobile every 12 seconds. It helps me keep up with mages. I like that it keeps me on par with everything else. However, the problem now is with so few stuns and CC, which is fine, it's almost irrelevant when it comes to landing a clutch interrupt or setting up a kill for arena, especially against healers. Not having that stun built into charge now really hinders and hurts. Warbringer seems to be the only viable choice at the moment. Double Time, actually, for the first time since it's been released, really might actually be relevant as well. Now granted, it can only grant you the rage every 12 seconds, but being able to use it twice before it incurs that cooldown I think is kind of nifty. So we'll see where that goes, but right now I'm banking on Warbringer being the go-to talent, and it's the one that I'm using at the moment. In our level 30 tier, we have Enraged Regeneration, Second Wind, and Impending Victory. Second Wind has been nerfed into the ground. It is rubbish. It is garbage. Don't waste your time. Talk to any warrior that's been playing on the beta as of right now, and they will all tell you that Second Wind is absolute garbage. The 10% leech is useless. 10% of the damage you do, not even worth it. By the time you get down to 35% health, you're not in a position where you can afford to kind of hope that a 10% leech on the damage you're doing is going to save you. It's just not going to happen. Impending Victory is decent. For a while it was what we were running with because it replaces Victory Rush, but you still have the functionality of Victory Rush along with a 30-second cooldown heal that you can swing for 15% of your maximum health, which is cool, I guess. So it may be viable, but right now Enraged Regeneration is your best choice. We're back to rolling with Enraged Regeneration. Instant 10% of your maximum health and then an additional 20% over 5 seconds. Upside to this is it is usable while stunned. 1 minute cooldown on that is actually really reasonable, so that's gonna be, I think, your talent of choice for your level 30 tier. Level 45 tier, we're looking at Taste for Blood, Sudden Death, and Slam. All three of these talents are actually decent, but looking at it from a PvP angle, Sudden Death or Slam are going to be your go-to, your best options. Taste for Blood, I could see having some relevance and some pull in raids and in PvE, but Sudden Death and Slam allow you the use of more skills and more damaging abilities just throughout the course of the fight. Sudden Death, now that it's been buffed, it was originally I believe a 20% proc chance when it first launched, and they nerfed it down to 10, and it was not good enough. It was hardly procking at all, and so now with the most recent beta build, we have now the 20% chance to proc back. So that's good. Consumes no extra rage to increase the damage, however, but it is usable at any target regardless of health level. So it allows you to just throw an execute out there whenever it procs. So far this has been the running talent I've seen a lot of warriors run with. I've been running with it for a while now and I've had great success with it. Being able to use execute here and there as it pops up is quite nice. There'll be some matches where I'll hardly get it to proc at all, and then there'll be other chances where it'll proc 4 or 5 times in a row. So I'm not sure how accurate the 20% is, but I'll take it. And if you really desperately like Slam, Slam is still decent. I say that because of the way it stacks up and does damage. Every time you use Slam, stacking up to 2 times, it basically increases the damage done by 50% and the rage cost by 100%. That sounds kind of intense, but if you think about the fact that it only costs 10 rage initially to cast in the first place, that's not bad. So honestly, I feel like depending on what your playstyle is, I could see Sudden Death or Slam both being completely viable and usable. In our level 60 tier, we have Stormbolt, Shockwave, and Dragon's Roar. It's unfortunate, but Dragon's Roar is still pretty rubbish. I believe it still hits pretty hard if you're rolling Fury with single-minded Fury, but if you're playing arms or two-handed Fury, then Shockwave or Stormbolt are going to be the way to go. Between the two, Shockwave and Stormbolt seems to be the better of the two, simply because you can guarantee a 30-second cooldown rather than hoping for the 20-second cooldown with Shockwave. Now, if you're playing 3v3 arenas, landing that triple Shockwave isn't always the hardest thing if you consider Warlock pets, Death Knight pets, Hunter pets. But it isn't always the best option, so sometimes it's just better to bite the bullet and just take the 30-second cooldown on Stormbolt. Stormbolt does do a relatively decent amount of damage as well, so it's kind of cool. It also is great for any kind of soloing old raids because, again, of that quadruple damage done to targets that are immune to stuns, i.e. bosses. I still wish that this would proc against players who are using abilities that make them immune to stuns. I think that would just be a sweet mechanic if you could pull off and keep an eye on that kind of stuff and then just pull off that clutch Stormbolt. But, again, we can't have it all, I suppose. Mass Spell Reflection would be good, except for the fact that it replaces your Spell Reflection. A 30-second cooldown on it as opposed to a 25-second cooldown, and if I'm not mistaken, the Glyph of Spell Reflection does not work with Mass Spell Reflect. So what you're looking at is a baseline, non-negotiable 30-second cooldown on Mass Spell Reflection. Plus side is it does work, of course, for all party members and raid members within 20 yards, but again, you're replacing a spell, not gaining another one. So just the trade-off doesn't seem like it's really worth it. But as of right now, it seems like Safeguard is yet again the only talent worth choosing in this section. I suppose I could see Vigilance being good if you're trying to pull off a little more defensive play as a warrior, trying to keep a teammate alive, but a 2-minute cooldown on that is kind of steep, so it just doesn't seem worth it. Moving on to our level 90 tier, we have Avatar, Bloodbath, and Bladestorm. Where to begin on this one? Avatar is decent. Cooldown is still way too long for it. For what it does, 3 minutes is just garbage. I'm sorry. Every 3 minutes, you get a 20% damage increase. Especially when you compare that to so many other classes who are able to buff their damage almost consistently. I'm talking to you, Ret Paladins and Feral Druids. A 3-minute cooldown on a 20% damage increase. Sure, it removes all roots and snares, but then they'll just put you right back in them anyway, so it doesn't even matter. Again, just to me, that's just ridiculous. Doesn't mean it's completely unviable. I had a lot of fun goofing around with it the other night, but it's not a talent you're just going to want to take always, no matter what. Definitely going to be still fun for BGs, I think, which then leads me on to talk about Bloodbath. Bloodbath really right now seems to be the only viable choice on a minute cooldown, which is nothing, so that's fabulous. For the next 12 seconds, your melee damage abilities and their multi-strikes deal 30% additional damage as they bleed over 6 seconds, while bleeding targets move 50% slower. So it's a stacking bleed that the bleed damage varies depending on how much damage you're pumping into the target, and it also does proc off your multi-strikes, which is nice. And it slows the target for 50% movement speed. So Bloodbath is probably going to be your best choice here for your level 90 tier because Bladestorm is yet again rubbish. Between the three choices there, Bladestorm, it's not terrible, but it's not great either. It's just back to kind of being subpar, where it's like, it's Bladestorm. I haven't had much success with it, and I haven't felt like it's done a whole lot of damage to really justify taking it over Bloodbath. Last but not least, looking at our level 100 tier, we have Anger Management, Ravager, and Siegebreaker. Unfortunately, yet again, we are looking at a one option only, I really feel, here in our level 100 tier, Ravager, because it functions as an offensive and defensive cooldown. Oh, you know what? No, it looks like they removed the parry chance from it. Say anything about parrying. Yeah, it used to have a 30% parry chance to it, not anymore. Oh, that's not so good. That's a bummer. I somehow missed that in the patch notes. Oh boy. Anger Management. Every 30 rage that you spend reduces the remaining cooldown of several of your abilities by 1 second. So reduces the cooldown of Avatar, Bloodbath, Bladestorm, Stormbolt, Shockwave, Dragon's Roar, Mocking Banner, Heroic Leap, Recklessness, and Die by the Sword. It's not a bad talent. 30 Rage might be a bit steep, I think. Having reduced cooldowns on some of your big abilities could be nice. I haven't done too much testing with Anger Management because it really didn't sound appealing, I'm not gonna lie. But I might have to go in and do some severe testing on it just to see what it's like. But Ravager's too much fun, nerf and all. But even just as an AoE that drops down and does damage, it's still cool. It looks cool, it's a fun ability. But it is the most viable, I think, right now out of the three because Siegebreaker is yet again rubbish. More rubbish. It doesn't hit nearly hard enough. A 1 second stun and knockback is whatever, and the fact that it replaces Intimidating Shout is the deal breaker. If it was just one more talent that you could get, one more skill you could have, you know what, I could see it maybe being a thing, and it would probably be fun. The concept behind it is cool, but it just isn't in all actuality. Theoretically, yes. Actuality, far from it. It's just not worth losing Intimidating Shout. So right now, just kind of looking at the tree that we have up. This is what I'm kind of planning on playing and rolling into Warlords of Draenor unless anything changes. Of course, this could all change tomorrow, so we'll see what happens. Fluctuating, of course, Sudden Death or Slam, because Slam is still fun and it's definitely still viable. I still stand by that. Shockwave or Stormbolt, one of the two. Leaning more towards Stormbolt, and then depending on what kind of mood I'm in, pulling off Avatar, but sticking pretty close to Bloodbath. I think is going to be your best there, and of course Ravager there. Moving on to our Glyphs. I'm not going to go through and look at all of the Glyphs. I'm just kind of point out some of the ones that I think are notable. First off, Glyph of Bull Rush, adding an additional 15 rage. Kind of nice. Root Interruption still is good. Successfully interrupting a spell with Pummel increases damage by 6% for 20 seconds. That's nice. That's pretty legit, especially for setting up some solid burst or setting up a good kill on a target. Any damage increase is always nice. And then, of course, Glyph of Shattering Throw. Still think it's ridiculous that we have to glyph for this, but there it is. It's just too useful of a skill. It's not worth skipping out on. Glyph of Drawn Sword could be decent if you're playing for more, looking for more of a defensive play style. Basically, just you gain 5 rage every time you parry while Die by the Sword is active. Die by the Sword has a 100% parry chance, so you're going to be getting some nice rage to start unloading on the target from that. I could see that being something worth checking out. Our last season's PvP set bonus, increasing movement speed by 70% for 3 seconds after using Heroic Leap, is now a Glyph. Mortal Strike could be decent if you're playing with a healer. While Mortal Strike is affecting the target, healing effects on you are increased by 10%. Of course, that would be nice. Again, scaling with Enraged Regeneration, and talking about our Rallying Cry Glyph. While Rallying Cry is active, you also gain 20% leech, healing you for 20% of all damage and healing you cause. That's not a bad Glyph. That I could see being something you could very easily kind of work into your Glyphs, and it would be viable, and it would not be a bad choice. I'm considering running with it seriously myself. I did a few games with it last night, and I liked how it functioned. 20% leech is good. A 10%, not so much. Because if you look at the tooltip on it, it's a 20% leech, healing you for 20% of all damage and healing you cause. You're going to help keep yourself alive quite nicely if that stays the way it is. So that I could see being a Glyph that is worth taking. So yeah, those are our talents. Should be interesting to see how this plays out. What will stay the same and make it into live? What will change? Very, very curious about it. Definitely not hating the talent build, that's for sure. But definitely a lack of synergy, I feel. So, thanks for watching. So, I'll catch you guys later. See you next time.